Hey guys, and welcome back. I hope you guys can hear me a little bit better now. I turned my microphone up a little bit, so I hope that'll be better for you. Let's see. Okay, so what were we doing last time? Um, all right, we just had our ball bouncing around the screen. Let's see that in action again. All right, we should be very proud of our progress so far. Nice. Okay, so next we're going to add a player. And I already went ahead and took the liberty of making a basic, public class player just because, that's kind of obvious. I don't need to type that. So we need, if you think about it, think about the ball. What information did the ball need to move around? Well, the ball needed an X value for its left and right position on the screen, its Y value for its up and down position on the screen, its velocities to figure out how many pixels per move does it move. And in this case, in our ball, we have to start off every update or every move that the ball does, it moves 4 pixels to the left and 4 pixels down to start off with. And we have our size, which is just for convenience, so that if we ever want to change how big uh, our Pong ball is, we don't have to go through and change every single size variable, which would be a huge pain in the ass. So that's a good way to think about it. What kind of information will your class need to hold? And we're pretty much going to need all that same information. So, um, okay. So I'm just going to type that all out again because just to drill it into all of our heads. Repetition, guys, repetition. So we have X, our left and right position. We have, I'm going to show you a shortcut too. If you have two variables that are of the same type, so in this case we have our int x and int y, you can use a shortcut. You can kind of declare both x and y at the same time. You just put a comma and then the name of the second variable. I only recommend doing that for variables that kind of go together. Like you can do that with the x and the y, or the x velocity and the y velocity. It doesn't do anything differently. It just, you know, it just saves lines, I guess. But I think it looks a little messy personally, so I'm going to do it the hard, pain in the ass way. Okay, so that's our player's position. Actually, no. On second thought, think about this. We're playing Pong, right? The player doesn't need to move left and right. It's just up and down. So if you think about it, we don't really need to keep track of the X. The X is going to stay in the same spot. So, because we move the paddle up and down to block the ball, and it doesn't move left or right. It stays stationary horizontally. So we only need the Y, really, which means we only need the Y velocity as well. And the computer will do the same thing. But of course, the ball can bounce all over the place, so it's going to have to keep track of both x and y. So we got our y and our y velocity. Um, if you remember, in ball we had size. Well, we're going to have to do something a little bit different in player, because we can get away with one variable for the whole size, because it's a circle, and it's going to be the same height as it is with the width. But our player is kind of rectangular, so that doesn't really work as well. So we're going to have to split that up into two. And let's see. We want width, and we might as well declare that or define that rather. Width, we'll say 30 pixels wide. And then private int height. That'll be, I don't know, what do you guys think? I'll say 50. See how that looks. Okay, that's all we really need for variables. Okay, so we'll have our constructor, public, player. And I won't have it take any arguments. Okay, so let's see here. Alright, so now that we've done that, since our player is a game object, public void update, because remember game panel is going to have to call player's update method, just like it has to call balls method, and same for paint. So, of course, we're going to have to import graphics. Graphics G. Sure. No, that will just end up confusing me. And trust me, guys, you don't want me to get confused. Import Java .awt .graphics. Yeah. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. So you are an idiot. I'm so stupid. There. I forgot to put the opening and closing brackets. Jeez. Okay. So how are we going to get the player to move when when someone hits like the up arrow or the down arrow key? How are we going to get that to work? Well, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to save this. Head on over to game panel. Okay, so you guys remember how we have action listener, which is an interface. And if you remember right, interfaces have their required methods that you have to have if you implement that interface. So for action listener, we had to have the action perform method. So our buddy Tim over here had somebody to tell that he went off every 50 milliseconds. So we have to use another different interface. And what's cool about interfaces is that you can implement more than one in a single class, whereas if you extend something, you can only extend one class at a time. So for keyboard input, we use a key listener. Aha. Okay. So remember, since we're implementing an interface, we're required to have certain methods in our class because those methods are going to get called, and we have to, the system has to make sure that we're going to have the methods so that they can call them. So key listener has 5 methods, believe it or not, 5 whole methods. So we can type those all out. There's key press, which gets called when a key is initially pressed, like when you push it down. That's when that gets called. Actually, no, I lied. Key listener has only 3. I was thinking of mouse listener. Sorry about that. So we only actually have 3 to work with. That takes a key event. Now, all these events they're just information about, they're just kind of holders for information about what happened in the action. Like, you can use the event object that gets passed to find out what the source of, like what called action performed, where the source of it came from. And that's useful for buttons because you can say, if E dot, well, I won't go into the syntax of it right now, but you can ask like which button it came from, like which button activated action performed. And we can do the same thing with the key event. We can check information about what happened in the key event, and we can check what key was pressed, stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. So we have key pressed, key released, and of course that takes a key event. I'll explain this in a second, how this all ties together. You guys are probably like, this makes absolutely no sense. What the hell are you talking about? And I don't blame you. Interfaces can be kind of confusing at first. And the last one is key typed. Alright. Key typed it's kind of a weird method. It only gets called when a key is released, or pressed rather, when a key is pressed down and then immediately let up. But it's not really reliable, and oftentimes it's not too helpful in a game. So we have that set up. We're going to go into part 2 because this is going to be kind of long. But we got the basics set up.